Right, my name is Neil, and I'm here to talk to you about Intune for Mac. It's really cool to be here. Normally I have a little marketing team standing next to me, frowning at me because I've forgotten the name of some Azure thing that we've just renamed. But I'm on my own, so that's pretty cool. The aim for this really is pretty high level, and it's to talk about our strategy changes for Mac, focuses for Mac, and what we've shipped recently, because I know probably a lot of you have looked at Intune over the past, I don't know, however far back you go, the worse it was. So if you looked at it a long time ago, it was terrible. If you looked at it fairly recently, it was less terrible. Now we are in a position where we're making good on some of those gaps, and I want to talk to you about some of those things we've done and what we've got planned for the rest of the year. I thought I'd add a little bit about me because most of you won't know me. So in the Microsoft world, I've been in Microsoft for 17 years now. I've been presenting about technology management and stuff for most of that time, so I'm known by most people, but as I wandered around here, I recognize a handful of you, but not many. Essentially, I've been in IT for 30 years. Most of that time, I've really enjoyed it. I think it's been a really, really cool profession to be part of. I spent a lot of time swearing at printers in my early time, a lot of time being lost in the early days of being a field engineer before sat-navs. My kids still don't believe me that we used to have a map and you have to balance it on your knee while you were driving around. The long and short really is I moved into management of Mac in 2016. And it's been an interesting journey since then. Back in 2016, in Intune, we had a lot of things to deal with, and Mac just wasn't one of them. So we outsourced most of that to Jamf, right? So we had that partnership relationship with Jamf. And ultimately, that's what most of our Mac management story was back at that time. In 2019, I was in Ignite in Orlando with a bunch of our VPs, you know, guys with really expensive shoes. And what I was hearing from our customers in the C-suite were that they were really unhappy about buying our product and then having to buy another product to manage their Macs, right? So there was, I kind of drew this diagram after that conference. And there's a whole bunch of customers that have got decades of investment in Jamf and they love it and we need to continue to support them. But there were a bunch of other customers that just didn't. And they were perhaps a Windows shop and they really didn't want to learn another product. And they were really angry with us saying, hey, we've got some Macs to manage and you're just not helping. Right? You're making me learn another product and you're making me pay some more money. So where's my story with macOS from? Well, I'm a photographer, I'm a gig photographer, so I've used Mac for, I don't know, pretty much as long as I can remember. Every one of these photographs would have been me, my camera, and a MacBook Pro in my bag, right? And that's just the kit, and that's how I've worked with things. 2016 was a brilliant year for me because I was able to take this passion for Mac. I've always loved the platform. I came from a Unix background. And do something with it professionally. It was the first real time to start looking at it professionally. When I'm not shooting gigs, I'm shooting jets. If you wonder how that shot was taken, I climbed up a mountain with my 9-year-old. But again, MacBook Pro in my bag. Mac has been a part of my life for a long time. The agenda, there's a lot to get through actually, so I may talk a little bit quickly, but I want to get through the content. If I go through something too quickly, I'm here for today, I'm here for tomorrow, so just come and grab me and you can talk to me about it. But ultimately, I want to talk about the strategy change, recent updates, quick demo of our device enrollment scenario today. If you've not seen it for a while, I thought I'd just include that with some of the recent changes. Our H2 plan, so H2 for us runs from June all the way down until the end of the year, and then a quick wrap up. So what's changed in our Mac management strategy? These 4 pillars are how we think about Mac management currently. Platform first. Essentially what this means is if Apple build it into macOS, we automatically add it to our roadmap, and it's that simple. So if it's natively available in macOS, if it's a feature that can be done in Mac is on our roadmap somewhere. Some of that stuff happens immediately. We'll talk a little bit about that later, but some of that happens absolutely spot on immediately. Those features just get rattled straight through. Some of it takes a little bit longer for us to build. But basically, the plan is we do whatever we can do on the platform. Where we can't do it in the platform, we use our agent. So we've got an Apple Silicon, we've got a universal agent, and that sits on the Mac, and currently that deals with things like scripts or DMGs, but it also deals with anything we can't do via the macOS platform itself. So where our customers want to do something and we can't find a way to do that on the platform natively, then that's what our agent's for. And thirdly, we've got secure productivity. So Apple make a ton of stuff available in the platform. We've got a bunch of stuff that we can do via our agent, but there's a bunch of things that probably don't make sense for us to focus on from an engineering perspective. So things like antivirus and anti-malware and security and identity, and encryption and all of these kinds of things. So for those, we rely on the tooling that we have in the suite licenses that Intune is a part of. So Intune's part of a much bigger suite, and there's a bunch of other products that are a part of that, and we rely on those where we can. So for things like conditional access, multi-factor auth, Defender, and those kinds of things. So typically, if we've already got a product that does that, then we'll rely on that rather than reinvent it, right? So we'll just look to integrate that more. And this is a fairly recent change. This is a change that's come about over the past probably year or so. Many of our customers have been telling us that they use community tooling. So Monkey is a brilliant example, right? Lots of our customers use Monkey today, and their question to us is, well, we really just need you to deploy Monkey. We've already got Intune licenses, so can you help us do that, right? Now, in Microsoft, with the wonderful Steve Ballmer, I can say these things because the marketing team are here. When we had Steve Ballmer, Steve really didn't like this at all, so it was really difficult to embrace. Nowadays, Microsoft is fundamentally a software engineering company. It's full of nerdy engineers. We all love open source, right? Tons of us use open source all day, every day. Microsoft are the biggest contributor for a long time to the Linux kernel. So embracing some of these community tools within Intune is a real passion project for us. So what we want to do here is where these community products and community tooling are not necessarily open source, but the vast majority are, look to build them natively within Intune. So we're not looking to kind of absorb the source code, just make them easier to deploy, right? So if you want to go and deploy Monkey, for example, we'd pull all thoseplists from the GitHub repo into the Intune UI so you could click those checkboxes off. You wouldn't have to go and find them, right? And maybe the binary too, we would look to kind of pull that in and deploy it for you. So we're looking to deploy and make it easy to use open source products too. So what have we been up to? I'm going to zip through these because they're a bit boring. So we've done activation lock management for ADE enrolled Macs. I loved Luke's presentation, it was really cool. The offboarding is something that always gets ignored. It's not a Mac-specific issue, right? It gets ignored everywhere. So whenever you see any management teams, whether that be Windows, iOS, Android, Linux too, nobody ever thinks, say nobody, rarely do people think about offboarding. Bypassing activation lock is a brilliant, brilliant reason why Macs should be ADE enrolled, I think. Software update management. My last talk at a conference in person was in November 2019. And one of the things I announced was that Intune would be supporting software update management. And we had this running. So we had this exact UI, we had it all running, but it was so unreliable, we just couldn't make it work. It was really, really poor. We got to last year. We've been working really carefully and diligently with the macOS engineering team. And I think we got to 12.3. And it started to get a little bit better, so we decided to release it. It's still a bit bumpy. Seems a bit better now, but it's there, and it's a way to do it. The updates that we've shipped recently are around deferrals for minor updates. This is what you see in the Intune UI if you're using that capability, so it kind of runs. One of the interesting things, I'm going to flip back a couple of slides actually. One of the interesting things here is that we tend to use this one where you have install later. This seems to work really well. So the Mac downloads the updates, prepares them, and then tries to determine when you're not using the Mac and then attempts to install it. This seems to work well for our customers at the moment. This is what you see in the Intune UI. Kind of gives you an idea of what's pending. Yeah, so we've got an interesting look at that. This is what I saw from some of my test devices with the RSR update recently. This is the big thing for us, the settings catalog. Trying to think the best way to talk about this. So historically, the way Intune has handled all Apple payloads, we look at what's in the protocol reference every WWDC. We then build that out, right? So we build a UI, we look at the payload, and then we deliver it to the devices. It takes a lot of engineering effort, it takes a lot of testing. Our settings catalog automates that. So essentially, it ingests a bunch of JSON, and then the UI is built off the back of that. So, for example, this ingests all of the Office plist data. It ingests all of the macOS and iOS payload capabilities. So as Apple add capabilities to that, they automatically get pulled through into Intune. Our admin team or our engineering team, when new payloads appear, they just get a little note to say there's a new payload. So we then enable that in our dog food environment. It then gets tested and validated and then goes into the product. Years back, this would have taken about 8 weeks to go and do one of these things and get it approved and get it translated into, I don't know, however many languages it gets translated into. Now it happens within hours. It's really, really quick. And then it just goes into kind of the human test parts of that to validate that it works. Really, really cool. My favorite thing with this is that we can also use these variables, which are awesome. So we can start to pre-configure things. In this example, we can pre-configure Office, which is super cool. It means the end user signs in. I'm going to demo this quickly in a moment. They sign in. When they launch Office for the first time, they launch Outlook, it already knows who they are. It doesn't prompt them to sign in, doesn't prompt them for their email address. It's really, really cool. So I'm going to skip quickly to this demo. So this is our device enrollment. So this is not an ADE enrolled Mac. I've already got the company portal enrolled. I've already got the company portal installed, and it's just going to ask me for my username and password here. So good old Desmond is my favorite test lab. Has everyone got a favorite test lab user? I've got a favorite test lab user, and it's Desmond. Desmond's from Lost, if anybody's old enough to remember Lost. You can see here what's happening is the device is being registered in Intune, and then we're just going to pull the management profile down. I mean, pretty much standard issue stuff. And you can see here, once I've installed this, Intune will push the policies down. In the demo here, I leave the policies window open just so you can see what's happening in the background. The reason I do this is a demo. This is really common for our customers to do in this scenario, and essentially, it's built for an M365 information worker. Not a developer, not a security guy, nobody special. This is for somebody that's using Office, and they're in an M365 environment, and they're doing that on a Mac. Well, they're doing that on a Mac because they like using a Mac, and it's fast, and the battery works, and all of the things that we all love about Macs. So you can see I've enrolled. Management policies are coming down. Our agent's being installed in the background. In this particular sample, I also included Swift Dialog. Now, Swift Dialog's being installed in the background. We're still checking the device settings. We've done our managed login items in the background. And again, these came from that settings catalog that we talked about a minute ago. So all of these things came down really easily and really nicely for us. It's really boring watching someone enroll, isn't it? So this is Swift Dialog. So in the background, essentially, our agent has pulled this down and fired up fired up Swift Dialog. I did speed this bit of the video. Everything else is normal speed. I've sped this bit up because, I don't know, I thought we'd all got better things to do than watch Office install. So we get here, the user's been guided through, we've changed the background, we've configured the dock, we've done all the managed items and things. If I look in here, you'll see the SSO is configured. So if I look in here, single sign-on's been configured. But if you notice, I've only signed in once. I've only put my credentials in once in this whole experience. I've not had to type them in again. Launch Safari for the first time, and I'm going to go to an M365 endpoint. So this works for any AAD-protected endpoint, so any of the Office 365 or Azure protected stuff. I try and sign in here. And what you will notice is it knows who I am, and it's not prompted me for my sign-in credential. So I've signed in once. I'm all done. I'm going to launch Outlook. I have to say, virtualization on Apple, this is a virtual machine. Virtualization on Apple Silicon is so much better than it was on Intel. So this is Outlook. I've not signed in here before. It automatically knows who I am. It's automatically signed in. It's just prompting me to accept that account, asking me about privacy, and I'm done. So the end user experience here is pretty slick, all based on those settings catalog and the variables that we've got in there. So I'm going to rattle through some of the things we've got coming. Again, if any of you really want to dig into this stuff, just come and find me. I'm here today, I'm here tomorrow. Platform SSO, this is brilliant. So that SSO extension that we just saw in action in the demo, Platform SSO is that, but it also writes that password to the local account, which is really, really cool. Local account management for ADE Macs. I've been championing this for, I forget how many years I've been wanting to build this, but it's now ready to go. We're going to preview this over the summer. This is really, really cool. It's integration of the Azure AD Lab service and also pre-configuring those local accounts on the Mac based on your AAD credentials. So as you go through your ADE Setup Assistant will send you to Intune for Azure AD authentication. We grab those credentials, and then we pre-configure the local account for you. We'll prompt you for a password. You can set whatever you like in that box, but then as soon as the SSO, the platform SSO kicks in the previous feature, we'll overwrite that password. The local account can be the end user account can be standard or an administrator. You get to choose. You can create an admin account or not. You can choose, and you can choose whether it's hidden or not. So it's pretty cool. Just-in-time compliance. This is a big deal. This is across all of our platforms, not just Mac. Essentially, this is compliance validation at app launch. So as you're launching your enterprise applications, we use the SSO extension to check whether the platform is compliant or not. If it's not compliant, we're going to refuse to launch the app until you make it compliant. It's based on the AAD SSO extension, and that means that any application that is using the MSAL auth library can make use of it, which is, again, super cool. Await configuration. Again, this is something in preview over the summer. The idea here is that we will hold the Mac in Setup Assistant until first device check-in is complete. So this allows you to control, depending on how you assign the policies, what the state of the Mac is in when you release it down to the end user. Web enrollment. In the demo that we just did, I showed you Company Portal. We have a Company Portal for every platform. We have one for Linux. We have one for Android, we have one for iOS, we have one for Windows, we have them everywhere. They're quite expensive to maintain. In the Apple world particularly, this gives us some issues because of Xcode. Sometimes we want to lift the version of Xcode, and that means it limits which macOS versions we can support. We're going to move to using web enrollment for Mac. So the idea here is there will be no company portal. You'll give your end users a web URL. You give them just send them a link. They'll click on there. They'll sign into Intune via the web, and then they'll use what's called the web CP. So that means there's no application required to do that. Once you've done that initial enrollment, we'll then push down our agents and other things. The end user experience, so if you need to choose apps to install, for example, that will be via the WebCP. So we're probably going to push down a web clip down to the dock, so you can click on that and you'll open the web portal. Agent-based PKG installs. Intune today handles PKGs. It does so using the install enterprise applications command. That has got quite a few limitations. One of the big ones being that the PKG itself has to be signed. There's a bunch of other issues with it, but that's the main one. And what we run into a huge amount with our Windows customers, first of all, they don't know what that is. So I say to them, hey, you need to sign it, and they just shrug at me and go, what do you mean, what, like with a pen? I don't know what you're talking about. And the second thing is when I send them the documentation and I say, this is what you need to do, they kind of go, what Apple developer? What do you mean? We haven't got any of that. And that gives us a problem because it means many of the basic PKGs we need to get down to our Macs, we can't do. So this is in preview currently. It starts in a couple of weeks. Ultimately, this is using the native macOS installer. So we're going to use the standard Intune pipeline, put the binaries onto the Mac, and then use installer to do that. We're also going to move some of our detection logic back from the MDM installed applications command to PKG receipts, and there's a few other things that get added in here as well. This is a big deal for this. This is probably the biggest move forward for us in Intune, I think. Seems really minor, but this is, if you've worked with Intune, this is a big deal. How am I doing? Right, so this is the macOS milestones and what we have planned. You can see here the rate of change. So back in 2019, we pulled together plans of how to, the best way to put this, we started to think about how we can position Intune for our customers, right? So this isn't about us going to compete with Jamf or compete with Workspace ONE, right? That's not what we're trying to do here. The aim is to meet the demands of our customers in an M365 environment, right? So, we're not going to suddenly give you Intune on premises, right? We're not suddenly going to give you imaging capabilities, right? This is very much based around, or very much, the strategy here is very much targeted towards M365 customers. They're in a Microsoft environment. They're probably in a mixture of Windows and Mac shops. And in fact, that's what's driving a huge amount of this, that pro-choice, right? The customers that have perhaps got, 50,000 Windows machines in there, and their Mac estate's just steadily been growing. They've been driven to do that based on, new hiring or, just forced to. It's not from their developer estate suddenly not grown, or their security reasons haven't grown, or their executives haven't grown. The drivers behind this is very much standard information workers using Office, but they want to do it on a cheap MacBook Air, right? Because it's fast, it's reliable, and they like the experience. So the big things for us that you can see the stuff that we've done over H1. H2 is really big. H2 is the culmination of, probably 2 or 3 years of my life of begging for resources and trying to get things out of the door for us for Intune. So I'm quite excited to see where we are. We think that we'll be in a position for October. So when we have the next major of macOS, we think all of this stuff will be shipped by then. And we're pretty excited about where that leaves us. Key takeaways. Marketing wrote this slide, so I can only apologize for that. But so Intune is focused on providing the best M365 experience for Mac. Like I said, we're not going to go into a feature battle with Jamf and Workspace ONE, and we're not going to abandon those integrations. So any of you that have got integrations with Jamf or integrations with Workspace ONE from the compliance perspective, we're really cool with that, and we're absolutely happy that that's where you want to stay. We've got no plans to change that model, right? So that connector model, that model that we have around, I guess what's called the third-party compliance API, that remains. It's not going to change. I guess some of the big things, though, are listening to feedback. So one of the things here, this community, to me, is really valuable. So if you can see stuff that you think we're missing, or that you are seeing customers, or you are a customer and you're in this Microsoft world and you're trying to manage your Macs within that world, come and tell us. Let us know. Come and tell me, basically. Let me know what you need. Let me know why you need it, and we'll take it to heart. Right? We're listening. This is I did this slide just to kind of show some of the capabilities. I was going to color code it and show the stuff that's been built in the last year or two, because it's pretty obvious, right? The vast majority of this stuff has been built fairly recently. And finally, I wanted to announce this. So we're part of the Slack community, so we do go and engage there, and I'm often there lurking and just reading about what people are saying. I can't get my devs and engineers to go and join that. Right? It's just not where they are. They're within a Microsoft world. So what I wanted to do, or what we thought we would really like to do here, is have like an addition to that. So we've got this Mac admins community for admins that are working within a Microsoft world. If you're using Macs within an M365 community, if you're using Jamf, if you're using Workspace ONE, that's really cool too. We just, if you're trying to manage Macs within that world and you're trying to get Office down there, you're trying to deal with conditional access, you're trying to deal with Office P lists and that kind of thing. The aim here is that we will have the PMs like myself part of that community, so you will be talking pretty much to the people that are making the decisions about the product, right? So you're not going to be dealing with support, not dealing with marketing. In here will be the people like me that try to make sense of what we should do next, what we should build, what's broken. We've already got a few of the engineering team on here as well, so they're like the kind of, I'm going to call them code monkeys, but they don't like that usually. But so the aim here is to have this focus. It is a relatively small group within Microsoft, but Microsoft is a very big organization, so there are quite a lot of people in here. So if you want to be part of that, then just drop an email to macadmins@microsoft.com and we will add you to it. It does need to be an M365 account. I'm trying to get around that somehow, but it seems to be a limitation of Viva Engage. And that's it. I'm done. So that didn't take too long. I've never done that quickly before, so I'm sure I've probably gone through it way too quickly. But any questions? I can see a hand. I'm going to breathe now and have a... I
just want to know if you can go 3 slides back before the...
3 slides back? 1, 2... That one? Yeah, one more. Yeah, don't take that to heart too much. I did that for one of our VPs who wanted to know what we could do, and I did it off the top of my head. So, I mean, it's probably right. I mean, it's probably...
It's been recorded. They're going to hold you to it, I think.
Well, it's all done. This stuff's all done. I just made it up. Some of the naming might not be marketing friendly. I'm trying to look see what I've called stuff. Yeah, I don't know. Load of stuff, anyway. Any more questions? Anyone want to look at another? Yeah, it's down here.
Coming. Who's first?
Hi, thanks for all that. Lots of great developments coming, seems. Just curious, like you had the onboarding workflow where you start with the company portal, which is going to be a web portal in the future, it seems, and then you use Swift Dialog. But
yeah.
I always think it's kind of cool if the tool that's going to be the kiosk is the thing that is the onboarding tool as well. I wonder if you have any ideas about making that customizable.
Yeah, we do. So we would love to do that. We've got a tool that's being developed for Windows, and we would love to do more with that. We're using Swift Dialog at the minute for most of those kind of deployments just because it's easy and it's really cool, and lots of our customers really like it. And once it's on there, you can use it for other things. One of the things that we'd also really love to do is in that await config feature to be able to launch some of these things in a little bit more control. In that example, it's difficult. It's a device enrollment. It's the one we've got least control over, right? So I like to show it because it kind of showcases the worst. That's like the worst end user experience we can possibly have, right? It doesn't get any worse than that. In ADE, it tends to be pretty quick, right? So that typically what happens is you would go through Setup Assistant. Our agent's running in the background, so as soon as you drop to the desktop, that script, it just waits for the doc to appear and then launches Swift Dialog. So it's probably 2 seconds or so, and you've got it's a pretty seamless experience. We would love to make it better. So If anyone can tell me how to do that, I'm all ears.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, very, very good, very interesting. I'm curious about how is actually the support to all of that? Do you actively have support for macOS on the call, in the call centers as well?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. The support is a savage and complex beast, I think, as anyone who's ever worked in a support call center will tell you. One of the biggest problems that we run into is the calls get misrouted. So the call might come into a call center and not get to the Mac people quickly. So if that call sits with somebody who's a Windows person, that's a pretty poor experience typically, right? It doesn't work particularly well. Once we get those calls routed to the right place, it's pretty good. You know, we have, in fact, engineering are much closer to support for Mac. So what you'll see on the Mac side is if you raise an issue, it will go from support straight through to engineering really quickly. If you do that on Windows or with another one of our products, there's this whole middle tier of like middle experts that will attempt to resolve it before it gets to the devs, right? The devs are kind of, you know, like, I tend to think of it like an ivory tower, right? They're protected from the world. No one shall ever speak to them. That's not the way it works in Mac, right? In Mac, you'll get, how many people know Paul Bowden? Anyone know Paul? Yeah, loads of, I mean, Paul will get on your support cases with you, right? I mean, if I ring Paul now, he'll just answer the phone and I'll tell him, Paul, I've got a problem, and he'll, you know, get out of bed. Well, probably will get out of bed. But you know, the Mac community within Microsoft is relatively small, but really passionate, right? Everybody that's working in that space within Microsoft is passionate about what they're doing. It's, in most cases, it's not just a job. It's not just a, you know, not just paying the mortgage. These people are passionate about what they're doing in that space. So those engineers will probably get on the support cases and help out quickly.
Brilliant, thank you.
And if they don't, call Paul.
Thanks for that agent-based PKG install. That is going to be a massive improvement.
I know, that will be the best thing ever.
In my experience, the other kind of big frustration was around triggering and reporting on installs and also scripts running.
Yep.
Are there any plans around you know, being able to kind of trigger from the endpoint itself to get it to install on demand and that sort of thing?
Yeah, there are. Yeah, all of that. Yeah. I have to be honest. One of the things that's impressed me more than anything is the monkey reporting capabilities. So we're looking into that hugely because it's fantastic. We've got a few customers who they're using Intune and they're using Monkey, and they're reporting they've actually gone down that route, and it's really delivering what they need. We've got to get our own house in order first, right? Our reporting in Intune is a bit laggy. It's really difficult to make things like orchestration and things work if your reporting is laggy, right? So if you're getting feedback into the product and it's taking minutes, that's a big enough problem. If it's taking hours or days, that's just a whole other problem. There are a lot of very, very influential engineers on our side looking to fix that problem. Ultimately, it's kind of a cost problem, right? Because we pay for our compute in the cloud. The quicker you want that stuff to happen, the more you have to pay for it. So there's an amount of efficiencies and there's an amount of how much extra we're going to pay for it. But we are going to do that because we have to make orchestration work.
We're running out of time. Can you stick that in the app? So there's a few more questions in the app. So if you
Oh, okay.
mind picking those up.
Okay, I will do those afterwards. And if you need any more questions, I'm normally sitting over there or wandering around. So, but thank you very much, everybody.
Sorry, Dan.